In 1891, my great-grandfather came from Maine to Whitehall, Montana, and lived there for a while, and then moved up here to Clancy. And my grandfather, Merle Marks, was born in 1900. Started ranching, and in the process, in 1930s and 40s, they needed extra income for the ranch, so they started sawmilling, cutting railroad cross ties and timbers for the gold mines around here. There's a lot of mines in the hills around here. And did that for the 40s and up in the early 50s, and kind of phased in and out of that. Late 50s, early 60s, my dad followed in his footsteps, doing the same thing, just sawing when they needed supplemental income for their cattle operation, selling rough lumber. And then in the late 80s, we retrofitted the old mill and started sawing railroad cross ties again. The market was hot, and we were doing it again to supplement our income from our ranching operation, and that's how Marks Lumber, as today, really started. Our specialty is heavy timbers, timber frame type. Send them all over Montana, in the neighboring states, either directly or through brokers that we work with. We do an awful lot of rough fir boards and appearance grade select fir boards for the new Montana look. We're not a production mill, we're a specialty mill. We don't worry about how much we can cut in a day. We want to cut the best piece out of the best log, and it takes a good log to make a good board. The logs that we buy come from well-managed forests. Ottman Forestry, they mark individual trees that are to be cut, and then they go cut for marked, or he goes and marks all the trees that are to be left, and they harvest everything else. What we do here is we buy a log, comes in on the truck, we unload them, we scale them. After the logs get to the mill, they're sorted for straightness, size, species, and then they're cold decked. We have a production meeting weekly with our employees. We have a cut list, and we go through that list of how these orders are to be placed. We cut it, we dry it. If it needs further milling in the planer operation, we can plane it, and if it needs delivered, we'll deliver it. It's a one-stop shop. Our milling operation starts out with the log comes in from the log yard into a debarker. Log goes through the debarker, takes the bark off, and goes in to what's onto the carriage, the head rig, and the sawyer. Through our production meetings and a cut list, he knows what we're going to saw out of those logs. The guys out in the yard are bucking for that particular order. They'll mark on the end of the log what we need to come out of that log, the main product, and then as it goes through, he just makes it happen. He enters into his computer in there, and it's not all computer, it's computer and visual, and it cuts the side lumber, and he ends up with the proper piece. After our lumber is sawed, it comes down to what we call a green chain. And we've got 3 or 4 employees on the green chain that pull the boards, stack them in a pile, put stickers between the layers for drying. The material goes from there, goes up to a staging area, and then gets into a schedule for going to the kiln. Comes out of the kiln, goes down to what we call a sorting chain. And we'll have an individual there calling grade, and he's throwing boards on this chain just about as fast as he can call them. And there's 4 guys pulling grade. And the 2s will go here, the 3s are here, the selects here, and so on. After our boards are sorted, they get identified, they get inventoried with a number, and they are either then paper wrapped and put outside, or if it's something that we're going to use right away, we put them in what we call our dry shed. It's a big shed, and it's got all different sizes and widths and lengths. The planer operation entails 2 to 3 guys when we're running that. Board goes in, goes through there at about 120 feet a minute. We do use our own byproduct. The bark is sorted after it comes out of the debarker. It goes up through a classifier, and we take all the fines. Everything smaller than a ½ inch we burn ourselves for heat in our boiler, and everything else goes in a separate spot that gets dyed for colored bark. So we don't waste anything. We've become real sufficient at utilizing the wood from the log. Our siding products are Douglas fir and lodgepole pine, and the difference between the two is that Douglas fir is more red and lodgepole pine is more white. And some of these most popular sidings are out of the Douglas fir. People like Doug fir. I don't know if it's the romance of it, but it's kind of the color. It's a rich, reddish look. It's a good product for us. People really like it. We do a very good job at manufacturing it. It's very accurate in size. It's consistently the same moisture. They put it up and they're not having shrinkage problems and twisting problems. And when a customer gets our product, they use 95 to 100% of it. They're not gonna get a bunch of stuff that's gonna go south on them. And if it does go south on them, we stand behind what we do. One of our anchors in our business is circular sawn Doug fir flooring that we make. It's a tongue and groove product. We call it center match Doug fir rough top. And it's a 1x4, 1x6, 1x8 fir board that we grade very tightly. Got to have good tight knots in it, no blemishes. And we run it through the planer. We put relief cuts in the back of it. We put a tongue on one side, a groove on the other, and we leave the circle sawn face on it. No 2 boards are the same, and it makes for a very beautiful floor.